Vishnupad Ashtara Shata Shishimad Mukti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Śrīla Gurudev Ki Jai Nityal Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtara Shata Shishimad Mukti Vedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nityal Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtara Shata Shishimad Mukti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Ki Jai Nityal Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtara Shata Shishimad Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nityal Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtara Shata Shishimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai Nityal Pravishta Maha-Bhagavat Śrīla Gorkṣoras Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Nityal Pravishta Śrīla Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Ṭhākura Ki Jai Nityal Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Rupa Nugogoriya Guru Varga Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Bhattadash Raghunath Sharda Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai Namachay Śrīla Haridas Ṭhākura Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Kshetra Mandal Gora Mandal Braja Mandal Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kunda Ki Jai Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya Ki Jai Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Gaur Om Jnanatirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tamai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Śrīmad Bhakti Vedanta Narayanitti Namine Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminitti Namine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha Kurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarbhaktaya Namo Namaha Yang prabrajantamanupeta krityang dvaipayano virahaka tara ajuhava putreti tanmayataya tarabobhinedus tang sarvabhuta hridayang munimanatosmi Narayanam namaskritya narang chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet Shrinvatang Svakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridantasto Hyabhadrani Vidhunoti Suhritsatam Nashta Prayeshvabhadreshu Nityang Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Tavaivasmi Na Jivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Devi Tvang Nayamang Charanantikam Bhaktya Vihina Aparadha Lakshay Kshiptashtakama Dittaranga Madhye Kripa Maitvam Sharana Prapana Vrinde Namaste Charanaravindam Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Hari Bol Satya Mataji and Pradyumna Prabhu, Mantra Murti Mataji, Bhavatarani Mataji, Hari Prabhu if you're watching, Indira Mataji, Oh, yes, everything's good. uh, all right, so now we are continuing with 12th Canto, Chapter 7, Characteristics of the Purāṇas. But before we begin, let's read a summary of what we read yesterday. So, overreaching reply to father's death. Let's read from here. By describing the 4 types of annihilation just before the death of Parikshit, Shukadeva Goswami indicated to him that his death was so insignificant compared to the enormous destruction that happens in this world, both on cosmic and minute scales. Shukadeva then concluded, cultivation of taste for hearing the Lord's pastimes is the only boat to cross the material ocean. Give up the mentality that you are going to die. You are eternal, never to be destroyed. Constantly meditating on the Lord, consider how you are different from the body and non-different from the Supreme Lord in quality. No agent of death can truly touch you. Parikshit thanks Shukadeva. Hearing the most auspicious narrations of the personal features of Lord Hari from you, I have achieved the purpose of my life. Great souls like you are kind to the foolish conditioned souls. Being absorbed in the absolute truth, now I do not have any fear of death from Takshak or even of repeated deaths. Please give me permission to resign my speech and the functions of all my senses, Lord. Allow me to absorb my mind within him and thus give up my life. Being worshipped by the king and the sages, Shukadeva Goswami then departed from that place. Parikshit sat on a darba seat, meditating on the supreme absolute truth. His life air ceased to move, and he became as stationary as a tree. Takshak reached Parikshit after bribing Kashyapa not to protect Parikshit and disguising himself as a Brahmana. Being bit by him, the body of Parikshit immediately burned to ashes. While everyone was astonished, a terrible cry all over the universe. The Gandharvas and Apsaras sang, and the demigods showered flowers and spoke words of praise. Janameja, the Parikshit, became extremely angry at his father's death by the snake bite. He resolved to perform a mighty sacrifice to offer all the snakes in the world into the sacrificial fire. He even dragged Indra towards the fire as Indra was protecting Takshak. Seeing the plight of Indra, Brihaspati came and spoke to Janamejai. This king of snakes has drunk the nectar of the immortal demigods and is thus not subject to old age and death. Please understand that life, death, and afterlife are all caused by oneself through one's own activity. No other agent is actually responsible for creating one's happiness and distress. Please stop this sacrifice intended to harm others. Many innocent snakes have already been burned to death. Janamejaya humbly honored Brihaspati's words and stopped the sacrifice. Thereafter, at Shonak Rishi's request, Sutta Goswami described how the intelligent disciples of Srila Vyasadeva segregated and transmitted the Vedas. The transcendental sound vibration of Omkar first appeared in Brahma. From that Omkar, Brahma created all the sounds. With these sounds, he produced the composite Vedas and taught them to his sons, the sages, who further propagated them. The parampara of the Vedas continues in all the 4 yugas by oral reception. At the end of each Dwapara Yuga, the Vedas are segregated into separate divisions by eminent sages, ensuring the accessibility by the people of diminishing intelligence and lifespans. In this Manvantar, the Supreme Lord appeared as Krishna Dvaipayan Vyas, and he divided the Vedas into 4 divisions and composed other literatures as well, which included the Purāṇas. He then gave each of these 4 Samhitas to 4 of his disciples. He gave the Rig Veda to Paila, the Yajur Veda to Vaishampayan, the Samaveda to Jaimini Rishi, Atharva Veda to Sumantu Rishi, and the Purāṇas to Romaharshan. These disciples further divided them and entrusted to their disciples for further transmission. Okay, so that's what we read yesterday, and today we'll read about the Purāṇas, characteristics of the Purāṇas. And I think I also wanted to read a summary of all the Vedas, so that we can get an idea of how the Vedas, like what is contained in Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Samaveda, and Atharva Veda. So maybe we can do that at the end of the reading, so that we have, because otherwise I don't know how long we should spend on this. So, yeah. Okay, chapter 7, characteristics of the Purāṇas. Sutta uvacha atharvavit sumantuscha shishyam adhyapayat svakam samhitam sopi patyaya veda darshaya choktavan. Sutta Goswami said, Sumantu Rishi, the authority on the Atharva Veda, taught to his disciple Kabanda, who in turn spoke it to Patya and Veda Darsha. Sārārtha-darśinī Vriti by Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura. The 7th chapter describes the branches of the Atharva Veda and the 10 characteristics of a Purāṇa, as well as an enumeration of the Purāṇas. The name of the disciple of Sumantu is Kabanda, according to the Vishnu Purāṇa. Shoklayanir Brahmadbalir Modosha Pipalayani Veda Darshasya Shishyaste Patya Shishyan Atoshrinu Kumuda Shunako Brahman Jajalishchapya Tarvavit. Shoklayani, Brahmabali, Modosha, and Pipalayani were disciples. Hear from me also the names of the disciples of Patya. My dear Brahmana, they are Kumuda, Shunaka, and Janjali, all of whom knew the Atharva Veda very well. Babru Shishyo Tangirasa Saindavayana evacha Adiyetam samhite dve Savarnadyas pare. Babru and Saindavayan, disciples of Shunaka, studied the 2 divisions of their spiritual master's compilation of the Atharva Veda. Saindavayan's disciples, Savarna and others, also studied this compilation of the Atharva Veda, Sārārtha-darśinī. Babru was a disciple of Shunaka, Angirasa. Saindavayan's disciple, Savarna and others, studied this. Nakshatra kalpashantischa kashyapangirasadhaya ete atharvanacharya shrinu puranikam mune. Nakshatra kalpa, Shantikalpa, Kashyapa, Angirasa, and others were also among the acharyas of the Atharva Veda. Now, O sage, listen as I name the authorities on Puranic literature. Let me just check the comments 1 second. Hari Bol Kishore Prabhu and Sudevi Didi, Dandavat Pranam. And Ganga Mataji, Hare Krishna. Trayaruni Kashapyascha Savarnir Akrita Vrana Vaishampayana Harito Shadvai Puranika Ime. Trayaruni Kashyapa Savarni Akrita Vrana Vaishampayan and Harita are the 6 masters of the Purāṇas. Adhyanta Vyasa Shishyat Samhitam Mat Pitur Mukhat Ekaikam Aham Etesham Shishya Sarva Samadhyagam. Each of them studied one of the Purāṇas from my father, Romaharshan, who was a disciple of Vyasa. I became the disciple of these 6 authorities and thoroughly learned each of their versions. Sārārtha-darśinī. Suta's father was Romaharshan. He said, I was a student of these 6 authorities. Kaśyapoham chasavarni Rama shishyo krita vrana Adimahi vyasa shishya chatvaro mula sanghita. The sage Kashyapa and I, along with Savarni and Akritavrana, a disciple of Rama, learns the 4 basic collections of the Purāṇas from Romaharshan. Sārārtha-darśinī. Vyasa Shishya means from Romaharshan. Purāṇa lakshanam brahman brahmarshibhir nirupitam shrinushva buddhamashritya veda shastranusaratah. O Shonaka, please hear with attention the characteristics of a Purāṇa which have been defined by learned brahmanas using their intelligence in accordance with Vedic literature. Sārārtha-darśinī. This is more or less a summary of what Shukadev had already said at the beginning. Sargosyata visargascha Vriti rakshantarani cha vangsho vangshanucharitam sangstha hetur upashraya dashabhir lakshanar yuktam Purāṇam tarvido vidhu kechit pancha vidham brahman mahad alpa vyavasthaya. O Brahmana, authorities on the matter understand a Purāṇa to contain 10 characteristic topics. Okay, so what are the 10 topics of a Purāṇa? 1 is the creation of this universe. 2, the subsequent creation of worlds and beings. 3, the maintenance of all living beings. 4, their sustenance. 5, the rule of various manus. 6, the dynasties of great kings. 7, the activities of such kings. 8, annihilation. 9, liberation. And 10, the supreme shelter. Other scholars state that the great Purāṇas deal with these 10 topics, while lesser Purāṇas may deal with 5. Sārārtha-darśinī. The characteristics of a minor Purāṇa are as follows. Sargascha pratisargascha vangsho manvantarani cha Vankshanu charitam cheti Purāṇam panchalakshanam. Creation, secondary creation, the dynasties of kings, the reigns of the manus, and the activities of various dynasties are the 5 characteristics of a Purāṇa. When a Purāṇa has the 10 characteristics, it is called a major Purāṇa, and when it only has 5 characteristics, it is called a minor Purāṇa. That would be a nice thing to do, is to break down Saruga, Upasarga, what is it? Manvantara, like break down what parts of the 10 characteristics relates to which part of the, which skandhas of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Anyways, maybe we can check that out later. Avyakrita gunakshobhan mahatastri vrito hama bhuta shukshmendriyarthanam sambhava sarga uchyate. From the agitation of the original modes within the unmanifest material, the Mahat Tattva arises. From the Mahat Tattva comes the element false ego, which divides into 3 aspects. This threefold false ego further manifests as the elements, the senses, and the sense devatas. The generation of all these is called primary creation. Okay, so that's Saruga. Sārārtha-darśinī. Sarga is defined. From a disturbance of the gunas of pradhan or prakriti comes Mahat Tattva. From Mahat Tattva comes Ahankar. From threefold Ahankar comes sense objects, Bhuta Shukshma, the senses, and the Devatas. This primary creation is called Sarga. The same verb is understood in the following definitions. Okay, so we're gonna, 1 second, I just want to see, maybe we can quickly find some online about, 1 second. Okay. Here is a summary of the 10 topics of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. But it doesn't tell which part of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is explaining that. I guess it's mixed in all throughout sometimes. Anyways, right now we just went through Saruga, now we're going through Visarga. Okay. Okay. Purushanugrhitanam eteshan vasanamaya Visargoyam samaharo bijar bijam characharam. The aggregate, the total and individual jivas, which is the effect of all the previously mentioned elements that have been favored by the Lord, is called Visarga. It consists of all moving and non-moving beings who are predominated by impressions of sin and piety, and who continue like a seed producing a seed. Sārārtha-darśinī. Visarga is explained. The aggregate or effect of all the elements which have been favored by the Lord, the total and individual jivas which are predominated by impressions of sin and piety, is called Visarga. This universe of moving and non-moving beings is a continuous current, like seeds producing seeds that produce more seeds. The previous definition of uti, impressions of karma, is included in the present definition. That's reference Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 2.10.4. One second. Let's just also check out this. Okay, so Sarga is the elemental creation. Sarga is defined as follows. Bhuta matendriya dhyam janma sarga udahrita. The elemental creation of 16 principles of matter, namely the 5 gross elements, the panchabhutas, the 5 objects of sense perceptions, the tanmatras, the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, the gyanendriyas, and the mind, is known as Sarga. Okay, so the 5 gross elements, the panchabhutas, are earth, water, fire, air, and ether. The 5 objects of sensual perception, the tanmatras, are sound, form, taste, smell, and touch. And the 5 knowledge-acquiring senses, the gyanendriyas, are the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. Together with the mind, these 16 principles are created by the first Purusha in Mahavishnu. Within these 16 principles, 8 other principles exist. The 8 other principles exist subtly, making there a total of 24 principles of material existence. So that's Saruga, the elemental creation. Now Visarga, creation, is defined as follows. Brahmano guna vaishamyar Visarga Purusha Smrita. The secondary creation by Brahma, carried out through the interaction of the 3 modes of material nature, is known as Visarga. The 3 modes of nature is Visarga. By manipulating the 16 original principles of material existence, and by the interaction of the 3 modes of material nature, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, Lord Brahma carries out a subsequent creation, more properly described as an assembling of universal ingredients. So that's Visarga. Then comes Sthanam, the planetary systems. So let's continue on here. Vritir bhutani bhutanam charanam acharani cha kritta svena nrinam tatra kamachchodhanaya piva. Vriti means the process of sustenance by which the moving beings live upon the non-moving beings. For a human, vritti specifically means acting for one's livelihood in a manner suited to his personal nature, either by desire or according to regulation. So, varnashram. Sārārtha-darśinī. The previously mentioned sthana, or sustenance, is here called vritti. That is explained in this verse. Because of desire, in general, the sustenance of the moving beings is the non-moving beings. The sustenance of the moving beings is the non-moving beings. And sometimes even other moving beings, those who are not vegetarian, indicated by the word cha. Among men, sustenance of the body according to one's nature out of desire or by regulation is called Vriti. The whole of the earth is the shelter for the moving and non-moving beings. In relation to this earth globe is the earth globe is described in the 5th canto. Let's look at this summary here. So Sthanam, the planetary systems. Sthanam is defined as follows. Stitir Vaikunta Vijaya. The true situation, Sthanam, is the realm of Vaikunta. The entire creation by the Lord is to enable the conditioned souls to satisfy their material desire to lord over the material energy. As such, according to their desires, the Lord creates a suitable situation, Sthanam, a suitable situation for them to dwell in. Within the universe, these situations can be divided into main categories, known technically as bhuvanas, or planetary systems, and 8,400,000 subcategories, commonly known as species of life. From the topmost sthanam of Brahmaloka, the abode of Lord Brahma, down to the lowest sthanam of Patalaloka, all situations are destructible. In every situation, the conditioned living entity is conquered by birth and death. Only by attaining to our eternal constitutional situation in the spiritual realm of Vaikunta can we conquer the birth and death of this material world. Thus, the true sthanam of the living entity is the realm of Vaikunta. All other temporary situations within this material world cause one to become a victim of material suffering, simply shifting from one situation to the next. So now we'll come to Poshanam, protection by the Lord. Just checking the comments. All right. Raksha Chutavatareha Vishvasyanu Yuge Yuge Tiryam Martyarshi Deveshu Hanyate Yaistrayi Dvisha. In each age, the infallible Lord's appearance in this world among the animals, human beings, sages, and devatas is called protection of the universe. By these incarnations, he kills the enemies of Vedic culture. Sārārtha-darśinī. Poshanam was called mercy of the Lord previously. Now, Poshanam is called Raksha. Raksha is explained. The activities of the Lord's avatars among animals, humans, and the devatas, which are the cause of his appearing, are called Raksha. Why does he appear? The demons are killed by the avatars. Thus, Raksha means protecting his devotees from the afflictions of the wicked. Also, sometimes Raksha simply means protecting his devotee from great fear, without a demon being involved. Thus, the protection of Ajamil and others in the 6th canto is called Raksha. Let's read the summary here. Poshanam, protection by the Lord. Poshanam is defined as follows. Poshanam tad anugraha. Protection, Poshanam, is the causeless mercy of the Lord. Poshanam can be defined in 2 ways, according to the mentality of the living entity. Souls, Poshanam refers to material maintenance. It is the Lord who fulfills the desires of all living entities. Nityo nityanam chetana chetananam eko bahunam yo vidadhati kaman. Supreme eternal among all eternals, the supremely conscious among all conscious living entities. It is that supreme one among the many who fulfills the desires of all. For the devotees of the Lord, Poshanam refers to the Lord's causeless mercy and protection. Protection from hunger is a form of protection, which the Lord offers to the conditioned living entities. For the devotees, the Lord's protection is protection from the illusion of Maya. The Lord gives the devotee the strength to always remember him and engage in his devotional service. Okay, so now we come to Utaya, the Kritis. Manvantaram Manurdeva Manuputra Sureshvara Rishayongsham Vatarascha Hare Sharvidham Uchate. Manvantaram means the reign of Manu, during which 6 types of person carry out specific duties. The ruling Manu, the Devatas, the sons of Manu, Indra, the great sages, and the incarnations of the Supreme Lord. Sārārtha-darśinī. Previously, Manvantarani was defined as Saddharma. Here, Manvantaram is as described. The word Vidha means the persons like Manu who perform their duties. This takes 6 forms. Manvantar means that the period in which these 6 types of persons carry out their designated jobs. I wonder where 5 is. Anyways, I'm gonna read 5 and 6. No. Utaya, the creative impetus. Utaya is defined as follows. Utaya karma vasana. The impetus for activity, Utaya, is the desire for fruit of work. The conditioned soul forgets that the Lord is his eternal protector and maintainer, and thus an impetus for fruit of activity is manifested for one's self-maintenance. This desire for fruit of activity is the driving force behind all work within this material world. Karma vasanas are the accumulated residue of one's previous activities. Every activity we perform creates a residual impression within our consciousness, which is carried with us life after life. The sum total of these impressions form our creative impetus to work. The true impetus of the living entity should be to go back to Godhead, to the supreme abode of Vaikuntha, and activities performed in that direction form the right path of work. Then Manvantar, which we just read about now. Okay, so Manvantar is defined as follows. Manvantarani Saddharma. The reign of the Manus, the Manvantars, are for establishing the eternal religious principles. Manu is the father of mankind, the progenitor, empowered to guide the human race towards self-realization. Manu reveals scriptures to mankind which regulates their activities in a manner that will be for their eternal welfare. When the living entities accept such, the Lord provides them with all protection, by which they may attain their constitutional situation in Vaikuntha. Thus, the desire to go back to Godhead and regulated activities performed to achieve that goal form the proper path of action. Now we come to Isha Anukata, the science of God. Oh, what about dynasties? Anyways, let's see. Ragyam Brahma Prasutanam Vangshastraya Kalikon Vangshanucharitam Tesham Vritam Vangshadharaschaye. Dynasties are lines of kings originating with Lord Brahma and extending continuously through the past and future. The activities of the prominent members constitute the subject of dynastic history. God, there was a lot of that in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, wasn't there? So many just long explanations of different dynasties. Actually, most of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, I think, is all, you can all trace it to explaining the different dynasties. But it gets so into so much detail about them that sometimes it's hard to follow that this is actually like where we are in the progression. Sārārtha-darśinī. Vangsha is defined. The continuous line of kings arising from Brahma is called Vangsha. Vangshanucharitam is then described. The activities of those among the kings who are famous, such as Priyavrata, Dhruva, and Prithu, is called Vangshanucharitam. And there's a footnote here. It says, These two items, Vangsha and Vangshanucharitam, takes the place of Ishanukata of the list from the second canto. Okay. Uti from the first list is included in Visarga of the present list. Alright, that explains it. So another word for Vangshanucharitam is Ishanukata, which is described in the second canto, the science of God. Ishanukata is defined as follows. Avataranucharitam harishchasyanuvartinam pungsam isha kata prokta nana kyano pabrimhita. The science of God, Isha Anukata, describes the incarnations of the personality of Godhead and his different activities, together with the activities of his great devotees. The entire material creation is for the ultimate purpose of the living entity's salvation. When the conditioned entities utilize the creation for secondary purposes, such as material fruit of activity, the Lord incarnates to reclaim these forgetful souls. The Lord directly delivers living entities by his divine appearance as well as by its recorded history. The Supreme Lord is so potent that simply by hearing about his transcendental activities in his various incarnations, one becomes free from material bondage. Thus, the topics of the Lord and his devotees, which constitute the science of God, should be given respectful oral reception. Now we come to Nirodha, the dissolution. Also known as Sangstha. Niruddha or Sangstha. Naimittika prakritiko nitya antyantiko laya sangsteti kavibhi proktash chaturdasya savata. The learned define Sangstha as destruction of the causes of the universe on 4 levels: occasional, elemental, continuous, and ultimate. What were the names for these? We just went through this in a couple chapters ago. Occasional was naimittic. Prakritic was elemental. Continuous was nitya. And ultimate was atyanta. I think it was atyanta. So occasional refers to at the end of each of Brahma's days, there's a partial destruction of all the universes. Then at the end of Brahma's life, there's an elemental destruction. All the elements enter within each other, and until there's nothing left, and it all enters into Mahavishnu. And then there's continuous, so that refers to our body. At every moment, our body there's some destruction, right? Like I used to be a child, now I'm an adult. So that child, there's constant, even though we don't see it happening, there's constant destruction taking place. And then the ultimate destruction is liberation, right? That was so that's destruction of our false ego, and when we truly are our pure spirit soul. All right, Sārārtha-darśinī. The previous term nirodha, here called Sangstha, is explained. The destruction of the causes, the bhava of the universe, such as earth, water, and fire, is called Sangstha. Okay, let's read what it says here. Nirodha, the dissolution. Nirodha is defined as follows. Nirodho syanushayanam atmana sahashaktibi. The merging of the living entity along with his conditioned living tendency with the mystic lying down of the Mahavishnu is called the winding up of the cosmic manifestation, or Nirodha. As we have briefly mentioned before, the entire material creation offers 2 facilities to the conditioned living entities. The living entities may either utilize it for their desire to lord it over material nature, or they may utilize it to go back to Godhead, the spiritual abode of Vaikuntha. For the living entities who take advantage of the science of God as propagated by the Manus, and who develop a desire to act in such a regulated manner, the Lord provides them full protection from the material energy and resituates them in their proper situation in Vaikuntha. For the other living entities who choose to disregard the science of God, the Lord gives them an interim period of relief at the time of dissolution. This temporary period of relief is technically called nirodha, or the winding up of the cosmic creation. All the living entities, along with their conditional tendencies, their vasanas, merge into the body of Mahavishnu to await another creation and another opportunity to take up the science of God. Though the physical bodies are given up at this time, the subtle bodies, the shukshma sharirs, remain with the living entities, along with their latent desires. This is indicated by the words Atmana Sahasraktibi. Okay, now we come to the ninth one, Mukti Liberation. Hetur jivasya sargader avidya karma karaka yang chanu shainam prahur avyakritam utapare. The cause of Saruga, Visarga, etc. of the universe is the jiva, who performs actions and is said to possess a material body, or alternately, possess a spiritual body. Sārārtha-darśinī. This verse defines hetu, the cause of Saruga, Visarga, etc. of the universe, as the jiva, who performs actions out of ignorance. Because the Lord creates the universe for the jiva is called the cause. Some call the jiva the possessor of a body made of maya. Anushayinam means a covering of maya. Others, the devotees, say that the jiva who performs actions out of ignorance when he is situated on the path of association of devotees is the possessor of a spiritual body, avyakritam. The word uta means on the other hand. Narad has said, prayujyamane maistham shuddham bhaktim tanum arabdha karma nirvano nyapatat pancha bhautika. Having been awarded a transcendental body befitting an associate of the Lord, I quit the body made of 5 material elements in which karma had stopped. That's Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 1.6.28. At the beginning of the prayers of the personified Vedas, Shukadeva Goswami said, Buddhindriya mana pranam jananam asrijat prabhu matrartham cha bhavartham cha atmanikalpanaya cha. The Supreme Lord manifested the material intelligence, senses, minds, and vital air of the living entities so that they could indulge their desires for sense gratification, take repeated productive activities, become elevated in future lives, and ultimately use their senses and intelligence for the Lord. At Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 87.2. Atmane kalpanaya means, so jivas would make an offering, the jivas would make an offering of their intelligence, mind, senses, and pran, their life air, to the Lord. Thus, the ninth characteristic, previously mentioned as mukti, is the same as hetu. Muktir hitvan yata rupam swarupena vyavastiti. That's Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 2.10.6. That means to attain a spiritual form, and that is explained also in the present verse. Alright, so let's read the explanation here of mukti. One second, I'm gonna sit down, my back's starting to hurt. Let me check the comments also. One second. That's better. Okay. 1 second. Okay, so mukti, liberation. Mukti is defined as follows. Muktir tvanyata rupam swarupena vyavastiti. Liberation, mukti, is the permanent situation of the form of the living entity after he gives up the changeable, gross, and subtle material bodies. Those living entities who develop the desire to act for their ultimate welfare regulate their life according to the instructions of the Manus. Such living entities receive the mercy and protection of the Lord in the form of his divine activities and incarnations, either personally or in its later science of God. By hearing the narrations of the Lord's activities, these living entities are able to give up all external identification with the principles of material existence and its interaction. Such purified living entities develop their original spiritual bodies and are resituated in their constitutional position in Vaikuntha, the spiritual abode of the Lord. This is technically known as mukti, or liberation. The words hitvanyata rupam indicates that these living entities have become completely free from all material coverings, including the shukshma sharir and related vasanas. That means their subtle body and all the desires. The word vyavastiti in real and eternal sthanam of the living entity, sunta vijaya. The sthana means the situation, the place, the where the jiva ought to be, Vaikuntha. Okay, now we come to the 10th and last topic of a Purāṇa, a supreme shelter. Vyatirekanvayo yasya jagrat swapna sushuptishu maya mayeshu tad brahma jiva vrittishvapashraya. That Brahman, present in all objects as its cause, in states of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, but which is separate from them, is called apashraya. Okay, so that Brahman which is present in all objects as a cause, in the states of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, but which is separate from them, is called apashraya. Okay, Sārārtha-darśinī. This verse explains apashraya. That Brahman which as a cause is present in all objects, in states of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, but which is separate from them, that is called apashraya. Padarteshu yata dravyam sammatram rupasu bijadi panchatantashu yavasu utayutam. Just as earth is present in a pot and also exists outside the pot, as sense objects exist in objects with name and form and also exist beyond them, that entity who exists in all states of the body from conception to death is called apashraya. That entity who exists in all states of the body from conception to death is called apashraya. Sārārtha-darśinī. This is explained with an example. Material like earth is present in an object like a pot and is separate as well, since it exists beyond that pot. Objects with name and form, sense objects like fragrance as well as their cause, ahankar and tamas, are present in the objects and also beyond the objects. In all states of the body from impregnation to death, that which is present as the controller and the witness and is also separate is called apashraya. So that is the Supreme Lord. He's the controller and the witness, and he's in all states. He's present as the controller and the witness, but he's also separate. That is apashraya. Okay, so let's hear the explanation here. Ashraya, the supreme shelter. My God. Let's see. Ashraya is defined in the following 3 verses. Abhashascha nirodhascha yatostyadhyavasiyate sa ashraya param brahma paramatmeti shabdate. The Supreme One who is celebrated as the Supreme Being, or the Supreme Soul, is the supreme source of the cosmic manifestation as well as its reservoir and winding up. Thus, he is a supreme shelter, the absolute truth. Yo dhyatmiko yam purusha so yam purusha so sav eva daivikayas tatro bhaya vicheda purusho hya, sorry, I messed up. Tatra bhaya vichedam purusho, whatever. Adibhotikam ekam ekatarabdhe yada napolabhamahe tritiyam tatra yoveda saatma svashaya shaya. Sorry, I messed up with that. The individual person possessing different instruments of senses is called the adhyatmic person, and the individual controlling deity of the senses is called the adidaivic. The embodiment seen on the eyeballs is called the adibhotic person. All three of the above-mentioned stages of different living entities are interdependent. In the absence of one, another is not understood. But the Supreme Being who sees every one of them as the shelter of the Supreme Being who sees every one of them as the shelter of the shelter is independent of all, and therefore he is the supreme shelter. Okay, so that is a description of Ashraya, the supreme shelter. Now we've gone through all the 10 topics of a Purana, especially this Bhagavat Purana. Okay. Virameta yada chitam hitva vritti trayam swayam yogena va tadatmanam vedehaya nivartate. When the mind, giving up the three states of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep by bhakti yoga, spontaneously enjoys the lotus feet of the Lord, at that time the conditioned soul realizes the Lord and gives up all materials. Sārārtha-darśinī. Having explained the 10 characteristics of a Purana, a verse is given to understand the topic. Similarly, it has already been stated, Dashamasya vishuddhyartham navanam iha lakshanam varnayanti mahatmana shrutenarthena chandrasha. The great devotees such as Vidura and Maitreya describe properly the 9 topics in order to impart the highest knowledge of the 10th topic through the words of the scripture and through stories to illustrate their meaning. The power of bhakti has already been stated. Jarayatyashu nirgirnam analoyata. That bhakti quickly destroys the subtle body, just as the digestive fire consumes food. That's really nice. I like that verse. Giving up the 3 states of material consciousness by pure bhakti, yogena, consisting of hearing and chanting, the mind spontaneously becomes detached from the gunas, or the mind takes great joy spontaneously in the lotus feet of the Lord. Or by Ashtanga Yoga, the mind becomes detached and really reaches nirvana. At that time, the mind realizes Paramatma and becomes detached from material desires. How many verses are in this chapter? I'm just curious. 25. Okay, we're almost at the end. Hare Krishna, Rasa Kelly. Evam lakshana lakshyani puranani puravida munayoshta dasha prahu kshulakani mahanticha. Sages experts in ancient histories have declared that the Puranas, according to their various characteristics, can be divided into 18 major Puranas and 18 secondary Puranas. Brahmam Parmam Vaishnavam Cha Shaivam Lingam Sagarudam Naradiyam Bhagavatam Agneyam Skandasam Gitam Bhavishyam Brahmavaivartam Marakandeyam Savamanam Varaham Matsyanam Kormam Cha Brahmandakyam iti Trishat. The 18 major Puranas are the Brahma, Padma, Vishnu, Shiva, Linga, Garuda, Narada, Bhagavat, what we're reading right now, Agni, Skanda, Bhavishya, Brahmavaivarta, Markandeya, Vamana, Varaha, Matsya, Kurma, and Brahmanda Puranas. Sārārtha-darśinī means 18. Okay, now we come to the last verse. Brahman idam samakyatam shaka pranayanam mune shishya shishya prashishyanam brahmatejo vivardhanam. O Brahmana, I have thoroughly described to you the expansion of the branches. I have described to you the expansion of the branches of the Vedas by the great sage Vyasadeva, his disciples, and the disciples of his disciples. One who listens to this narration will increase in spiritual strength. Sārārtha-darśinī. Mune means of Vyas. I've explained the action of the branches made by Vyas, his disciples, and their disciples, which will increase the spiritual power of those who hear about it. Thus ends the commentary on the 7th chapter of the 12th canto of the Bhagavatam for the pleasure of the devotees in accordance with the previous acharyas. So tomorrow we will come to chapter 8, Markandeya meets the Lord. So we still have 3 minutes left. What can we do with these 3 minutes? I thought it would be fun to see about the Vedas. I just went to Wikipedia. Yeah. Okay, let's just read a little bit from Wikipedia. The Vedas are a large body of religious texts originating in India, composed of Vedic Sanskrit. The text constitutes the oldest layer of Sanskrit literature and the oldest scriptures of Hinduism. There are 4 Vedas: the Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda, the Samaveda, and the Atharva Veda. Each Veda has 4 subdivisions. Okay, so there's 4 subdivisions of each Veda. What are they? They are the Samhitas, which are mantras and benedictions. The Aranyakas, those are texts on rituals, ceremonies, sacrifices, and symbolic sacrifices. Then there's the Brahmanas, which are commentaries on rituals, ceremonies, and sacrifices. And the Upanishads, texts discussing meditation, philosophy, and spiritual knowledge. Some scholars add a 5th category, the Upasanas, worship. The texts of the Upanishads discuss ideas of the heterodox Shramana traditions. I don't know what that means. Vedas are Shruti, what is heard, distinguishing them from other religious texts, which are called Smriti, what is remembered. Hindus consider the Vedas to be Apaurushaya, which means they are not of a man, they are superhuman. They are authorless. Okay, and Apaurushaya means authorless revelations of sacred sounds and texts heard by ancient sages after intense meditation. Okay. So the various Indian philosophies have taken differing positions on the Vedas. Schools of Indian philosophy that acknowledge the primal authority of the Vedas are classified as orthodox or astic. So those are the 6 different schools of thought, right? There's Vimamsa, Purva Vimamsa, all those, Nyaya, all those, Vedanta. So those are all astic. And other Shraman traditions, such as Charvaka, Ajivika, Buddhism, and Jainism, which did not regard the Vedas as authorities, are referred to as heterodox or non-orthodox. Those are Gnostic schools. Okay, now let's see how the Vedas are divided. That's what I really wanted to see. Oops. I did like that. Okay, it's further down here. Maybe let me just make small for 1 second. Okay, there. This is what I wanted to see. The 4 Vedas. Let me just check the comments really quick. Actually, because I know some of you have to go now, so I'm gonna just end it now. Like I'll do Jaidwani, and then any of you who wants, you can go, and I'll continue reading for anybody who wants to stay. Yeah, I'll do that. All right. Yeah. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki jai, Shri Govina Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju ki jai, Nityal Pravishram Vishnupad Rashata Rashata Shishmar Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Shri Gurudev ki jai, Nityal Pravishram Vishnupad Shishmar Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj ki jai, Nityal Pravishram Vishnupad Shri Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Nityal Pravishram Vishnupad Shri Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj ki jai, Nityal Pravishram Vishnupad Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai, Nityal Pravishram Maha Bhagavat Shri Gorksharas Babaji Maharaj ki jai, Nityal Pravishram Shri Satchidananda Bhakti Ṭhākura ki jai, Nityal Pravishram Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai, Shri Rupa Nuvgoriya Guru Varga ki jai, Shri Rup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jeev Gopal Bhattadasha Gunashar Goswami Prabhu ki jai, Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai, Namacharya Shri Haridas Ṭhākura ki jai, Prem se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Braja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai, Shri Radha Kun Shama Kun Yamuna Ganga Tulsi Bhakti Devi ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Shri Nitai Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Gaur. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Satyavatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat pranams, everybody. So if anybody wants to stay, I'm going to just read a little bit more about the Vedas, just because I'm curious to know myself. And I mentioned I would do that yesterday, so that's why I'm just... but what's Kishore says? Oh, Srila Bhakti Hriday Bhan Goswami Maharaj wrote an introduction on the Vedas in Bengali. Cool. All right, so let me share my screen again. Okay, so the four Vedas. I don't know how to say that word. The canonical, the canonical, whatever. Included in a list of sacred books officially accepted as genuine. The division of the Vedas is fourfold: the Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda, the Samaveda, and the Atharva Veda. Let me make this big so you can see. Oops, it's too big. There. Oh, dang it, I lost my spot. Okay, let's find that word. Canonical, or whatever it was. Canonical. There it is. Okay. Of these three, the first are the principal original division, also called Traividya, that is the triple science of reciting hymns. That's the Rig Veda for performing, the triple science of reciting hymns, that's the Rig Veda, performing sacrifices, the Yajur Veda, and chanting songs, the Samaveda. Traividya. The Rig Veda most likely, okay, whatever, I don't care about that. So Witzel notes that it is the Vedic period itself. Anyways, whatever. Okay, each Veda has been subclassified into four major text types: the Samhitas, which are mantras and benedictions; the Aranyakas, text on rituals, ceremonies such as a newborn baby's rites of passage, coming of age, marriages, retirement, and cremation, sacrifices and symbolic sacrifices; then the Brahmanas, which are commentaries on these rituals, ceremonies, and sacrifices; and the Upanishads, which are texts discussing meditation, philosophy, and spiritual knowledge. And then some people say that there's a they say the upasanas are short ritual worship related sections. Okay, so those are the four divisions of the Vedas. The types, the text types in the Vedas. Only one version of the Rig Veda is known to have survived in the modern era. Several different versions of the Samaveda and Atharva Veda are known, and many different versions of the Yajurveda have been found in different parts of South Asia. The text of the Upanishads discusses ideas akin to the heterodox shaman traditions. I want to look more into that. What's the shaman tradition? But anyways, later. Okay, so the Rig Veda. The Rig Veda is the oldest Indic text. It is a collection of Rig Veda is a collection of 1,028 Vedic Sanskrit hymns and 10,600 verses in all, organized into 10 books. The hymns are dedicated to the Rig Vedic deities. The Rig Veda is based on clear principles. The Veda begins with a small book addressed to Agni, Indra, Soma, and other gods, all arranged according to decreasing number of hymns in collected series. The hymns progresses from longer to shorter ones, but the number of hymns per book increases. Finally, the meter 2 is systematically arranged from Jagati and Trishtub to Anushtub and Gayatri as the text progresses. Okay. Let's see the Samaveda. Samaveda Samhita consists of 1,549 stanzas, taken almost entirely, except for 75 mantras, from Veda. Interesting. So most of the Samaveda comes from the Rig Veda, except 75 mantras. While its earliest parts are believed to date from as early as the Rig Vedic period, anyways, I don't care about that stuff. The Samaveda Samhita has two major parts. The first part includes 4 melody collections, that's Gana. And the second part, 3 verse books. Okay, so the first part is Gan, 4 melody collections, and the second part is 3 verse books, Archik. A melody in the songbooks corresponds to a verse in the Archik books. Interesting. So it's like one book is helping you I guess like one book's like a guide for the other book. Just as in the Rig Veda, the early sections of the Samaveda typically begin with hymns to Agni and Indra, but shift to the abstract. Their meters shift also in descending order. The songs in the later sections of the Samaveda have the least deviation from the hymns derived from the Rig Veda. Okay. Now we come to the Yajurveda. The Yajurveda Samhita consists of prose mantras. It is a compilation of ritual offering formulas that were said by a priest while an individual performs ritual actions such as those before the yajna fire. The core text of the Yajurveda falls within the classical mantra period of Vedic Sanskrit. Okay, the earliest and most ancient layer of Yajurveda Samhita includes about 1,875 verses that are distinct, yet borrow and build upon the foundation of the verses in Rig Veda. Unlike the Samaveda, which is almost entirely based on Rig Veda mantras and structured as songs, the Yajurveda Samhitas are in prose, and they are different from earlier Vedic text linguistically. The Yajurveda has been the primary information about sacrifices during Vedic times and associated rituals. There are 2 major groups of texts in this Veda: the black, the Krishna, and the white, the Shukla. The term black implies the unarranged, I don't know what that word is, motley connection. Motley means incongruously varied in appearance or character. Okay, so they're not consistent. The unarranged motley collections of verses in Yajurveda. So that's the black section, the black group. Jachi. Okay, and in contrast to the white, which is the well-arranged Yajurveda. The white Yajurveda separates the Samhita from its Brahmana. The black Yajurveda intersperses the Samhita with Brahmana commentary. Of the black Yajurveda, Texts from 4 major schools have survived: the Maitrayani, Katha, Kapistala Katha, and Taittiriya. Ooh, Taittiriya. Hey, we just read about the Taittiriya, right? Those were the pigeons. They took the pigeons. That was Vaishampayan. Vaishampayan's disciple, who is, what was his name? Vishwadev? No. Oh God, what was his name? I forgot his name. Anyways, he vomited the scriptures, and then his disciples took it. They became pigeons, and then they took it, and that was... Anyways. The youngest layer of Yajurveda text is not related to rituals nor sacrifice. It includes the largest collection of primary Upanishads, influential to various schools of Hindu philosophy. Interesting. So most of the Upanishads come from the Yajurveda, I guess? Okay, now we come to the last one. The Atharva Veda Samhita is the text belonging to the Atharvan and Angirasa poets. It has about 760 hymns, and about 160 of the hymns are common with the Rig Veda. Most of the verses are metrical, but some sections are in prose. So the Atharva Veda is by far the smallest, huh? 2 different versions of the text, the Pipalada and Shonakya, have survived in the modern times. The Atharva Veda was not considered as a Veda in the Vedic era, and was accepted as a Veda in the late first millennium. I don't know about, whenever it talks about time stuff, I take it with a massive grain of salt. The Atharva Veda is sometimes called Veda of magical formulas, an epithet declared to be incorrect by other scholars. Whatever, who cares what they say. The Samhita layer of the text likely represents a developing... whatever, okay. Okay, the Atharva Veda has been a primary source for information about Vedic culture, the customs and beliefs, the aspirations and frustrations of everyday Vedic life, as well as those associated with kings and governance. The text also includes hymns dealing with the 2 major rituals of passage, marriage and cremation. The Atharva Veda also dedicates a significant portion of the text asking the meaning of a ritual. Oh, that was something. I found something else which might be a bit better than what we just read. But anyhow. Anyways, now I'm getting some little kind of... I need to read more though. Alright, I'm gonna go for back now. It was Yajnavalkya. He was the one who vomited. But he heard from Vaishampayan, and then his god brothers, they took the form of pigeons and took it up. Right. Yeah, Kishore, I totally agree. I mean, it's all just what the scholars are saying who don't have any faith in the scriptures. Well, most of them, they don't have any faith in the scriptures, and it's all just academic. So, yeah. But sometimes it is, yeah. So I don't read it all. I always don't take everything seriously. All right, everybody, I'm gonna go now. Thanks for something else on the Vedas also, which might be better, but anyhow, I'm gonna go and I'll see you all tomorrow. Jai Shri Radhe. This is my last day, or maybe tomorrow is my last day in Kolkata. I have to see. My brother's arriving in the airport today here, and I'm gonna find out from him if he wants to stay one night in Kolkata or if he wants to go to Mayapur. And then the day after tomorrow is Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's and Gadadhar Pandit's disappearance day. So, all right, Haribol everybody. Jai Shri Radhe. Haribol Kishore.